So let me call the October 16th, 2025 meeting of the Board of Health to order. It is roughly 4:10 in the evening. We are in the Harbor Masters Conference Room. And remind the public that this is a hybrid meeting and the public is welcome to attend this meeting in person. However, there is a Zoom link to provide remote accessibility. Though be aware that the meeting will not be suspended or terminated if technological problems interrupt the remote connection. So our first order of business is to go around the table and have everyone introduce themselves. I am Joe Rosa, Chair of the Board.
Marco Pellegrillo, board member.
Aaron George, board member.
Executive advisor, septic subcommittee.
John Judd, professional engineer with Gateway Consultants.
Jason Camps, I'm a builder for the client at 95 Eastern Point Boulevard.
Fred Callum, I'm a consultant for the septic review subcommittee.
And Chelsea Goldstein Walsh, I'm the regional prevention director at the health department.
And Dominique Curley, director of public health. And can I just send our apologies for starting a few minutes late to those on the line? We had some access issues to the room.
So Cody and Connor, you want to introduce yourselves, please?
I'm Cody Smith, sanitarian.
Connor Williamson, assistant sanitarian.
Very good. We also have some members that can introduce themselves when the time comes, if that's okay. Good. Next item on the agenda is public oral communication for, that's an opportunity for someone in the public to speak for up to 3 minutes on an item that is not on the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, the only person who's not a health department member on the line is Paul Lundberg. Mr. Lundberg, would you like to add any comments? He's on mute.
No, just observing today. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. The next item is the approval of the minutes for the September 4th Board of Health meeting.
We're going to accept the fourth board meeting minutes.
I'll second.
The meeting minutes have been seconded to be accepted as written. Is there any discussion? Edits, changes? None? Vote? Aaron?
Aaron, yes.
Marco,
Joe Rosa, yes. The meeting minutes of September 4th, 2025 are accepted as written. The next item on the agenda concerns 95 Eastern Point Boulevard. And John Judd is representing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, John Judd, engineer with Gateway Consultants, representing the applicant for this replacement septic system at 95 Eastern Point Boulevard. Soil testing was done out here for this replacement system in April of this year. At that time, we had successful perk tests, and we tried to move the system as far away from the resource areas of Gloucester Harbor as possible. So we put it in the northeasterly section of the property to the extent possible. There are presently 8 bedrooms in the house. You may recall some of the discussion at the last hearing where this was presented, where the design for the system that's actually in place, which is in failure, I believe in failure, but it's what we're trying to do is upgrade it to accommodate a state-of-the-art system that has treatment. So we're designing it for a 4-bedroom, whereas the system that was installed was not installed for an 8-bedroom system, but we're designing it for a 4-bedroom as through discussions with staff and so forth, through trying to keep it to follow the protocol of the Board of Health in terms of design flow and not exceeding what's on file at the Board of Health for a bedroom count. So we're using advanced treatment. We're using active advanced treatment with a 3-compartment tank and also pressure distribution over a leaching field. There's no reduction in size. However, we are looking for a 2-foot reduction in groundwater due to the mounding that's required. Most of the system will have 4 feet of clearance above the water table. It's just the upper portion of the slope, which is the most conservative part, would have 2 feet. Again, we're looking for that reduction to the groundwater, and we did have less than 4 feet of material in the one portion of the field. So we're looking for that alternative design standard for the approval of this remedial use singular system. And I know Cody has some experience with this, and we'll definitely have some comments. So that's our presentation for now. We're here to answer any questions.
Cody, do you want to speak to this?
No, I can speak to it. So just to remind the board, the applicant came, kind of like John said, with a 5-bedroom design at the last Board of Health meeting. And there is a design capacity for this. There's a design on file for this existing dwelling for a 4-bedroom system. And so it didn't meet new construction standards as a 5-bedroom system. So now as a 4-bedroom system, the board can consider it as an upgrade and not new construction. So it meets all the requirements. The applicant did state that they'd do a deed restriction. Or John stated that the applicant would do a deed restriction in an email. So there'll be a 4-bedroom deed restriction for the building. The only thing I would add is that, there's been some talk that this dwelling is going to be potentially demolished. And if it is demolished, then I think, it would be prudent to revisit the tank locations to see if we can move them further away from the flood zone. Right now, the tanks are there because they have to work with the existing plumbing of the building. And, in the event that the building is demoed, then we may be able to scoot those tanks further away from the flood zone. And, right now the applicant's looking to have the septic and pump chambers 16 feet and 5 feet away from the coastal bank. And have them 16 feet and 7 feet from the FEMA flood zone 15. So they're, only approximately using existing grades about 2 feet above existing grade now, or 2 feet above that flood zone. So, I think that the board should consider approving the leach field where it is. And if the applicant comes back with a proposed new building, that we revisit the tank locations, especially if there's going to be any type of soil or rock removal associated with the new building, because if there is, then that equipment's already on site and they should be able to, potentially move those tanks further away.
And I can add, I've already spoken to my client about that. If we do tear the house down, we absolutely will want to move the tank.
That addresses the one concern I had. Our consultants' comments, Doug?
Thank you for, redoing this and revisiting that. And I totally agree with everything that Cody said. Just makes sense, on this. And this is actually a good resolution, I think, to a field system and people who want to get going, with their project. I totally support, what's going forward.
Thank you. Nothing to add?
Other comments from the board? No, I think this is a good solution to what was a complicated situation to start with. And I agree with the proposed moving of the tank should the building come down and plumbing not become an issue, since it'd be redone to start with. So that's terrific. I would move that we accept the proposed changes with stipulation that if it comes to demolition and further construction, that we in fact impose new tanks as the client has suggested. But apart from that, I would propose that we agree to this proposal.
Chairman, can I ask one question?
Sure.
Will that, if they do decide to reconstruct, will we require a new plan? So this plan approval would only be good unless you decided to demo. And if you decided demo, you would come back to the board with where the tanks would be, and what the plan is.
I'm not sure that's, I think typically we'll work with the agent for a de minimis change like that. Is it the field were to be changed? Absolutely. But normally when tanks are moved further away from the resource area, we'll pick them up on an as-built, but I'll let Cody speak to that.
I would say that like the board could grant the variance for the tanks at their location given the proposed dwelling, and we'll preface it with moving. And if we're moving the tanks further away, I think we're moving it further away from the resource area, in which case we could handle it inside or internally at the health department. But if the board wanted to revisit that at that point, we could come back for another variance request. But granting the variance request now for something that is much closer to the resource area would then, anything less than that is a win on our side. So I think we could review it internally. I think John should submit a plan with the proposed tank locations, potentially, with the new proposed dwelling, that I can check the inverts and make sure that that all works. But I think we can, that way the proposed dwelling knows what the plumbing should look like inside to those tank locations. But, designing a house like this can take some time. So I think, granting the variances, conditioned basically that if the dwelling comes down, the tanks move further from the resource area is appropriate.
And then a new plan would be submitted to the health department for approval. Right, and that could have been, we would just follow a normal process from there. If it was something that had to get elevated to the board, we would do so. But a new plan with the dwelling and the tanks would be submitted to the health department for approval.
With the location, but I don't think it would have to go back to the board.
Right.
Just be internally looking at the tanks, making sure it made it made engineering sense, and making sure, because if we grant the variance today for the tanks and we're just moving further away, I think that, that would save the client, or just, I don't think the board needs, unless they want to, needs to spend extra time on that.
I'm happy to leave it up to you, Cody. If
I was more about just having a plan submitted rather than just.
right.
Yes. Okay.
Right.
So, I think with the new proposed dwelling, we can look at the tank locations and submit something new, and that can be, and a plan approval can be generated for the new tank locations. But we can generate a plan approval now for, the existing dwelling, that, approves the leach field, and the condition basically being if the existing dwelling is demolished, that we're going to move the tanks further away.
Good. Good.
Do you need the deed restriction in your motion?
Thank you.
Yes, for sure. But I assume that was part of the.
It is. It's on the plan. Nothing would be issued until this is standard protocol when we have deed restrictions on the plan.
And I don't know the mechanics of a deed restriction. If the house is demoed and it's new construction, the deed restriction goes with the old house. So they could build a new house with 5 bedrooms if they wish. No.
The deed restriction goes with the lot, Fred.
Right.
Okay. So although it would be new construction, they would be held to the deed restriction at 4 bedrooms.
Correct.
That's clarification. Thank you.
So any further discussion? All in favor? Aaron?
Aaron, yes.
Marco, yes.
Joe Rosa, yes. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Good job.
Danielle, Bobby's not on the line, so I just want to be sure that you're taking notes. I am as well. I just want to be sure we have record.
Yes.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
we also have the recording too.
Exactly. I just want to be we're on it.
Yeah, and Bobby told me she couldn't make it tonight, but we'll watch the recording and type up the minutes.
Next item on the agenda concerns 8 Citywood Avenue.
John took off. Oh, no, it's Dan, sorry. That's what I'm doing. Okay.
Is anyone here to discuss that?
So Dan Johnson, because it's just basically a local upgrade approval, or it's two local upgrade approvals, doesn't need to present because he's already kind of talked to me. It's not a variance.
Good.
And so I can present to the board for this
Sure.
plan.
Okay, go ahead.
So 8 Cedarwood Road, if you guys can you see the screen okay?
Yep.
So just to start you in, 8 Cedarwood Road, Marshall's Farm Stand is right here, Atlantic Street to the right, that goes out towards Wingersheek Beach. 8 Cedarwood's on the left-hand side of the road, kind of away from the stream that comes down. This is a failed system. It's been a failed system for an extremely long time. There's numerous orders to kind of install a new system for this lot since going back to almost 2000. So it's been in failure for a while. The way it was described to me is that, the owner is now in declining health and his son is taking over and trying to, I think, potentially sell this property. And so that's why they're looking to get into compliance, which it's a shame they kind of didn't do it sooner. The existing system is a tank that's out here that runs to a leach pit near the paved driveway. So this new system is a conventional system, pressure dose, so it comes out to the tank and then pumps up to the D-box. It's outside of all the resource areas, so it doesn't need a variance. There is a catch basin that's close by that's at 51 feet, where a variance would be needed at 50 feet. I did walk the property after doing soil testing, and did notice that there is a drainage swale that potentially leads to this catch basin as part of the work, and a note that's on the plan that drainage swale is going to be rerouted into the trees and shrubs. So it's no longer draining towards the catchment basin. But what they're looking for relief is a 1 foot separation to groundwater. So to have it at 3 feet instead of 4 feet. And this is to kind of work with the backyard and keep the grading so it's not necessarily water flow going towards the 3-bedroom house, because you've got a large field here or a large hill here that's draining across the property. So mounding it up could create more flow towards the house. So that's why we're asking for the 1 foot, or why the applicant is asking for the 1 foot reduction. Also asking for an LUA to the house. Typically 20 feet is required for a soil absorption system. In this case, it's 18 feet. That cellar wall and basement that's in the house is not a habitable space. It's more of a utility room. Therefore, I think, we don't really have to worry about sewer gases. It's also only a 2 foot reduction. Given the small lot size, I think it's appropriate. So there's not necessarily a vote per se on the LUAs, except to let the health department know, as an agent of the health department, that we can either approve this plan, or if you see problems or conditions that we've missed as a department or myself, then, we kind of address those and I can get that back to the applicant.
Cody, is the proposal a conventional system or advanced treatment?
On a conventional system. So, which it's outside of all the resource areas. And the 1 foot reduction to groundwater and the reduction to a building are allowed under LUA, where you don't need an advanced treatment system. If he was going for a 2 foot reduction to groundwater, he would need advanced treatment.
You answered the question I had about the distance to the catch basin. It's 51 feet. I'm very familiar with the system in the area. I'm not familiar, however, with this is a pro step system, and I'm not familiar with that. And my understanding is we'll have regular O&M through the inspection port in reading the plans.
A pro step system requires annual maintenance, similar to a like a filter in a septic tank needs annual maintenance. So as part of the approval for the pro step, they do need an O&M contract to come out and maintain that pro step and make sure that the screen is clean and it's not backing up.
I think it's interesting to try, new technologies to see if they, work in certain places. So this will be an interesting, experiment, so beyond that, it meets all the setbacks. I wish it were in a less environmentally sensitive general area, but I think it, checks all the boxes.
Sounds like it's an improvement over what's there now.
Oh, definitely.
Fred, did you have any
No,
comments?
thank you.
Any comments?
The term new is not new as in that it has to get approved by DEP new. It's traditional. I just want to be sure we have that on the record. There's nothing here that's needs further review by anybody else in using the word new or novel.
It's new to us. I'm not. I don't think it's ever been installed in Gloucester. So
Dave, if I can speak up, Dave. So the pro step is often used for our Waterloo systems. So it's kind of a unique system where you can put it into a 2,000 gallon pump chamber. It's approved to basically go into any septic tank as its own kind of pump vault. And so they're used generally in conjunction with this style of septic tank with a baffle wall, where we're pumping to either a Waterloo or a D-box. So sometimes, yeah, so they, the nice thing with the pro step is it requires a maintenance contract, but it doesn't require an extra tank.
Is a grinder, garbage grinder still restricted?
yes. Yes.
Yes.
Any other comments? Do we have a motion?
I will make a motion to approve the local upgrade requests as written.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion from anyone? No, all in favor?
Erin, yes.
Marco, yes.
Charosa, yes. The variance requests local upgrade requests for 8 Cedarwood Road are approved and requested. Next item on the agenda concerns 190 Western Ave.
The grimace. No, say that, Fred.
No, do you have a payment for this one? See if there's visual.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr.
I was just about to say that before we get started, since you three of you didn't get a chance to introduce yourselves, please do so now.
Will do. So good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, board members, Dominique, staff, advisors, Dan Ottenheimer, engineer with Mill River Consulting. And with me is
Albert Ellis. I'm a lifelong Freshwater Cove resident and one of the owners of the property.
Tom Cronin, not a lifelong resident, but resident from 82 to 92, and then from 2012 until now.
And we just met.
So.
before I start, I have an amusing aside at Albert's expense. She doesn't even know this yet, but many or all of you know Ron Strong from RV Strong.
Sure.
So Ron's first job ever as a teenager was working for Albert's mother at a clam bake on the 4th of July, parking all the guests' cars when he was like 16 years old.
He was also my babysitter. So if there's anything strange about me.
So, thank you. Wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about an interesting situation and something that I and we think makes a lot of sense. Obviously, that's your jurisdiction to decide if you concur with us or not. So I want to give a little background, a little context. So we're talking about 190 Western Avenue. So if you're heading out of town towards Magnolia, You go past Stage 4 Park, like 3 or 4 houses on your left. There's a large old stone wall, and this is back behind that. The property had 2 houses on it in the 1800s. Those were taken down in the early 1900s. The building that's there now was constructed, and it's been there since then. It's been a single-family house, and then it got converted into a nursing home, residence, and a religious retreat center. That's pretty much what it's been from the 1950s until very, very recently. The wastewater system up until about the 1970s was a pipe that's still a relic pipe. It's actually, parts of it are still there, but it's obviously not used. That's what we had. I've examined the current wastewater system. The components look to be from about the 1970s, which kind of makes sense because that's when the Clean Water Act was adopted and direct discharges became prohibited. So they probably put the on-site system in right about then. So that's the on-site system that we're dealing with. There was an inspection done of the system. It passed the inspection. There was one small component that needs to be fixed, but overall it passed the inspection. Your staff, the health department, has been through the building. Turns out there's 23 bedrooms in the building. So good place to go hide and go seek. And now we have new owners, and Albert and Tom, and there's 2 other parties are looking to figure out what to do. And part of that involves some soil testing that we did with Cody that I'll bring you all up to speed on. One thing I think is significant is that 3 out of the 4 owners, all 4 of the owners of this property live in Gloucester. 3 of the 4 of them look at this property. So they're not builders coming from out of town looking to do something. They're looking to do something that makes sense for this property because they're looking at it, literally looking at this property. So Albert and Tom live on Muscle Point, looking out towards it, and then there's another owner, Gib Keary. He looks at it from up on Stillington Drive, and then there's a 4th owner also in Magnolia as well. So that's why there's a considerable amount of thought going into this, and that's why I wanted to just spend some time discussing this all. So they're at kind of a decision point of 4 different scenarios. 3 of them are not ideal from an end product situation. One of them is the solution that seems to make the most sense for the neighborhood, for the property and what have you, but it would potentially involve a variance. So the other 3 would not necessarily need a variance. So I kind of just want to walk you through that to give you some context of what we're talking about. So overall, they're looking to put some housing on this property. So I'll walk you through. Obviously, I provided you with some background in a packet. Hopefully you had a chance to review that. But basically, this is the property here. Here's Western Avenue. Here's Gloucester Harbor. This is where the existing building is located on this part of the property. Cody and I went out and did soil testing in this area, found good soils here, and found good soils here. And then so that's what's shown in pink. Shown in blue is the current system that serves this house or this building. So there's a series of tanks here, and there's a soil absorption system located here. So that's
what. How much size is this lot or lots?
It's just under 9 acres.
9 acres. Okay.
So obviously the various scenarios involve wastewater disposal, right? That's what we're here to talk about. So we wanted to kick around a few of the scenarios that could happen, and then the one that we think makes the most sense. But again, it would potentially involve a variance. So that's why we're here to just discuss, and we'd like your feedback on it. So one solution could be to, the sanitary sewer ends kind of near Stage 4 Park, is to run the sanitary sewer down here. That's a several $million-dollar undertaking, but it is a possibility. But the reality is, I'm speaking now for the owners, but if they do that, they're going to have to build more houses in order to recover the several $1 million that they're going to be spending on a sewer line here. So it's not the outcome that they want. And I'm not sure that's the outcome that the city wants either, but that is one possible scenario that could happen here. And then that wouldn't involve the board at all. Next possible scenario is to basically kind of split this into two and have some sort of renovation of this structure into a retreat center or a living space of some sort. And
Nursing home.
Yeah, or nursing home, and continue to use this facility and then build some housing here using the soils that we found up here. We think that adds more density to this property than is prudent. And again, these folks are looking at it and they don't necessarily even want that, but it seems like they could do that by right. So we have that scenario. We have the third scenario where we convert this building, which we can do by right, into some sort of retreat center, nursing home, housing, or what have you, and just continue to reuse this as in some format. But again, the risk here is this is a 1970s on-site wastewater system located close to the water. They have an inherent right to start putting 23 bedrooms afloat to that tomorrow, but that's not the outcome that is good for Gloucester Harbor and what they would envision as the prudent use of this property. So what they are considering most, I think, thoughtfully, is some sort of cluster housing development in here. That would obviously have to go to the planning board as a cluster housing development, putting the live, the actual live leach field over here where we had good soils, abandoning this septic system, abandoning this building as well. So not making a particularly dense housing development. I know housing is not your issue, it's more of the planning board issue, but I think that's part of the discussion here. The reality that we face is the reserve field. There's a fair amount of ledge on this site, and we've explored it pretty abundantly. We've got good soils here for the actual field. The reserve field located here could comply with Title V. So no variances from Title V, but could not comply with the standards in the Gloucester on-site wastewater regulations, both from the coastal resource area that's here, and then there is a stream that flows down here. So it would comply with Title V, but not comply with the setbacks to freshwater and coastal wetlands that are above and beyond Title V in the Gloucester regulations. So I happen to think, and I think we've discussed this on other projects as well, there's a prudent trade-off here in that the odds of this reserve area ever needing to be used are incredibly small. We've got very good soils here, way far away from the water, and that's where we would use as the actual disposal system. And so we would like your consideration or your feedback on this concept of potentially having a reserve area that does comply with Title V, does not fully comply with the Gloucester regulations. And as we said in our report to you, we'd even be willing to somehow limit this so that this can only be in use for, say, 6 months while the primary system was rebuilt. Let's say 50 or 80 years from now, there's a problem here. They could temporarily use this for, say, 6 months while they're rebuilding this one, and then make it go back to here. So something along those lines, we think is a prudent way to even more or provide better protection to Gloucester Harbor. So that's our thoughts. And we're, they're kind of at a decision point here. So we'd like to just see if there's any of this strikes a chord. Sounds great, sounds not great, and somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, and so the pink areas, the new pink areas appear to be twice as large as the existing.
That's just the way we doodled it on there. It's
so is it to accommodate more than 23 bedrooms or?
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, to that question. I'm sorry, Joe. I spoke over you. I apologize. So 2 things. 1, we have not engineered any of this. we just showed you general boxes here for the purpose of today's discussion. Because obviously engineering a wastewater system here is going to be quite expensive. So we wanted to get a sense if the board felt one way or the other, that's going to help steer us before we actually come in for a formal variance, as we've done many times before. To your question, sorry, what was your question?
You're saying how many bedrooms?
Oh, bedroom. Yes. I'm sorry. So we believe we have capacity for about 38 bedrooms here. So, and as we indicated that in our letter, so we know we would be taking a 23 bedroom system and abandoning that and replacing it with some sort of cluster housing development for additional bedrooms.
8 or 9 houses. Actually, we're thinking that we probably wouldn't want to do more than 6 or 7.
Okay.
Chairman, can I speak up?
Yeah, Cody, if you could.
One question, what was, option 2 wasn't in your letter. This sounds like it's a new idea. So can you just elaborate a little bit more on the 2-lot split when you said you would also be adding housing, and also what is that? How does that compare to what your 6-building, 38 bedroom?
So that would be considerably more density. That would be 23 bedrooms in this building being renovated and used here, plus some sort of cluster development here. That is
based on what the fields could hold.
Yes, correct. So correct. So that is a very dense use of this land, and it is an option. And I'm certain a developer from Worcester or whatever would say, yeah, let's maximize this land. They don't want to do that, but that is an option that they could implement and would need probably no variances for it. So.
Cody, did you want to speak to this at all?
So we've done considerable testing out there. And I guess I'll start at the beginning just to kind of correct a couple things Dan had said. So the, are you there? Can you?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I got a warning on my computer that it had quit. The Title V,
Cody, maybe you should dial in.
Gonzo, this computer didn't lie.
Oh,
sorry, I got cut out there. I apologize. Hopefully that doesn't happen again.
Did you dial in?
The Title V that was done was a pass, but the city conditioned it that it needed to be re-inspected after 6 months of normal use. And so that pass could result in a fail. Dan's scenario, where they, use it as a 23 bedroom and potentially use it, and then develop that other area is, a definite, scenario that could play out. But, basically, like if we were to look at it and say this is a full design plan put in front of us, looking at granting variances for the reserve area, we'd be going against our regulations that we just voted in, because the applicant hasn't made the definition of manifestly unjust for this property. They're proposing 6 to 8 homes for this area, all 5-bedroom homes. Given the field sizes that are outside of the resource areas where we've found good soil, they could easily build, potentially 3 6-bedroom homes instead of, they could build 6 3-bedroom homes instead of the 6 5-bedroom homes they're proposing, which is so by no means is what should be considered a taking at all. So I think the board should consider that it is against kind of the regulations that we did vote in, to proceed with option number 4 that Dan presented. But in the event that, the applicant did go for option number 2, we'd probably be stuck with a leaching field within our resource area, to service that 23-bedroom nursing home or facility.
That's 2 or 3.
What's that?
2 or 3
Option
would
2 or
be, yeah,
3,
so 2 or
The option 2, which I believe is the option to develop a cluster development and the 23-bedroom and the 23-bedroom dwelling.
and option 3 is just to renovate and use the existing field,
Yes.
provided that it passed the Title V, of course.
No, so it has passed the Title V, but it's conditioned by the city, not by the state, that it gets re-inspected after 6 months.
Well, I think the state also requires that you can simulate, right? If the house hasn't been empty, the state also stipulates that you have to be able to simulate and test to make sure.
No, Title V does not say that. Sorry.
Title V doesn't. We are allowed to condition to be more strict than Title V, and that's what the cover letter had said that Leslie produced.
Septic system for a vacant system must be inspected under simulated conditions to receive a passing grade at the point of real estate transfer. If it's been empty. So I'm assuming, did you already do that
Title V does not
when
indicate.
people bought the land?
That's not in Title V.
Okay.
It's not in
I
Title
know
V.
you're the man that just taught me Title V. It's crazy. I'm like, not gonna question the prof here, but
Right. Yeah. Regardless, so can I speak to Cody's 2 points? Would that be helpful, Mr. Chairman, or you tell me what would
No,
be?
go ahead.
So first, this is correct, like any vacant property, the staff requests that it be re-inspected at the time after reoccupancy. That makes good sense. We're not questioning that. It's currently not seeing 23 bedrooms of flow, so there would be no point to inspect it now. We're certainly prepared to do that. I wouldn't expect there to be a problem. It was operating quite fine for 40 or 50 years and nothing has changed. So I don't expect there to be an issue. Second point that the sanitarian brought up relates to the regulations and the current regulations that were adopted a year or so ago and the previous regulations that have been on the books since the 1980s or 1990s have always had language associated with what is appropriate to grant a variance. And so you always have had an equal degree of environmental protection provided, and is it manifestly unjust? I can think of 4 or 5 cases that involve me for new construction where you have granted variances where nobody needed to make an argument about manifest injustice. I happen to, be at many of your meetings, and I do review the minutes of the ones that I'm not. And I'm aware a few months ago, you granted a variance for new construction for the active leach field, not even the reserve leach field, for new construction.
what was that address?
That was 47 Ye Old County Road.
That's Westport.
I don't know what was there, but the minutes reflect there was zero argument about manifestly unjust. It's not something that we have historically taken into account under the old regulations or the ones you've adopted a year ago.
Can I say something to Mike?
Sure.
So I want to remind the board that when we went through the regulation review, we continuously brought up the fact of what do we believe in. And we rewrote these regulations carefully because we wanted to be sure that we wouldn't have ambiguity in guidance, so that when somebody came before the board, they could expect common treatment regardless of where they were. Since the regulations have been passed, yes, 43-year-old was passed. However, I think 3 separate properties, including the property that was just here before us, are complying. And I think the board, made its decisions during the rewrite process to be sure that we are attending to this consistently. And, beside the fact that we're not looking at a plan here, we don't see any of the buildings, we don't see any of how they're going to route the pipes. We have no idea what they're actually going to do. So, it's speculative to even consider this. But I think most importantly, it's important that we're consistent in our evaluation. And we all agreed and rewrote the manifestly unjust terms and defined them very carefully, if you remember those ad nauseum sessions, to be sure that we would be really clear and able to hold this up. And so I just want to, in my role as a director, make sure that we are offering all of our residents consistency. And I think it's very important that, 3 other properties came before us with similar dynamics, very similar in that they're distance from these buffer zones, these coastal resources. And in all cases, the board, looked at the regulations and made these decisions. So I just want to be sure that when we do finally see the plans, that that's what we're taking into account. These are rules that we're very careful about. No, go ahead.
So I'm Albert Ellis. So did those 3 examples that you're citing also contemplate the abandonment of a system that was non-compliant in terms of the Gloucester health regulations?
Well, you're not non-compliant to the regulations if you renovate your building and use your existing field. You're well.
No. I'm talking in terms of new construction. If you were to, we couldn't use that field for new construction. We're not.
Right.
So were they also abandoning a system that was, let's call it, in harm's way, so that they were actually improving the outcome from a sanitary standpoint, as we are proposing? So are those actually consistent?
They are consistent. They are consistent in that they are all new construction offset to a coastal resource area, which is exactly what you're asking for here.
Have they all abandoned a system that is within the buffer zone? An old system within the buffer zone? Are they abandoning a system?
So I just wanted to be clear. Your current system, if you were to renovate your 23-bedroom home, is perfectly within our regulations. You are welcome to use it because as are they. If you're proposing new construction and a change, and when you do that, all of the new construction regulations come into place. These other 3 properties all had plans and were all denied their plans and have withdrawn them or changed them or to attend to our law. And it's for the same reason, the same variance request that Dan's asking for.
Okay, but in the variance request, were they also abandoning a system that was, let's call it, not compliant to the current Gloucester regulations?
Can I weigh in here?
Sure.
Because I reviewed all 3 of those plans. So all 3 of those plans had failed septic systems that were not compliant. So the unique difference here would be that those 3 plans had failed systems. And your system has a passing system, although outdated. But they were failed systems, so they needed to be replaced. And so they were replaced. Instead of replaced with increased flow or increased capacity that would make them new construction, they were replaced as a replacement in kind system that met current regulations.
Thank you, Cody. But I will submit, and I've got your minute from that meeting that I'll share with you, where you granted a existing 2-bedroom house, you allowed them to build a 4-bedroom on-site wastewater system, meaning for new construction, significantly closer to the resource areas than this project. And that was in April of this year. So, and at that time, your staff indicated to you that you're setting a precedent. And this board chose to, I think, use reason and logic and said, what's being proposed at this instance and what's being proposed here is a net win for the environment. And that's what you felt comfortable doing here. And I would hope you would see, and you felt comfortable doing this on many other projects over the years. And I would hope that you would feel comfortable considering that in this instance as well.
And yes, I have a lot to talk about, and I have it written down. And it'd be nice to get to a spot where all of this works, but I'm afraid the way the regulations are written, that maybe we can't get there. In the public sector, as Dan knows, process is more important than product. It's important to follow a process. In the private sector, product is more important than process. It doesn't matter how you get there as long as it's the best. under our local regs as well, it says the person requesting a variance has established that strict enforcement of the provision from which a variance sought would be manifestly unjust. And because the owner still has substantial and viable use of the property, I don't believe this conceptual proposal meets the strict criterion. Preventing the most beneficial use is not enough. Enforcing the regulation must eliminate all beneficial use to qualify for a variance. Things to remember or to consider if the current septic system is to be utilized. I think you submitted a letter to the health department and about 2 years ago, a little less than that, that said that the current septic system will function properly if the siphon tank is discontinued, and further states that you believe the system is designed for 5,502 gallons per day. The health department and Dan, initially agreed about the approved design flow and ultimately determined that there's an approved design flow for 2,530 gallons per day or 23 bedrooms. Note this is less than half the original proposed design flow for a system that reportedly will function properly. However, if the current septic system were to be used and does subsequently fail, areas where there are adequate soils have already been identified in law, making the process easier to obtain approval for a system upgrade if that became necessary. I think option number 4, if it is where you want the variance, I think that's a great idea for the environment. I don't think you can do that under our current regulations. Comparing a 2 or 4 bedroom upgrade to what you're proposing here is a question of scale, if nothing else. And if you think that we made a mistake with Yeo County Road, it doesn't mean that we have to follow that mistake forever. I know there was a weekend when I was in college. I don't have to follow the same mistake for the rest of my life. So I don't think that's necessarily, a death knell.
So these regulations never have and do not today speak anything to scale, whether something is 9,900 gallons a day or 220 gallons a day, it's treated the same under these regulations.
I disagree. In Title V, if it's more than 2,000 gallons per day, you have to do a mounting analysis, for example.
Yeah.
Right. So there is a question of scale in Title V.
Fine, but we comply with Title V. We're talking about the Gloucester regulations, and the Gloucester regulations don't address scale. So I'm sorry, Mr. Sargent, you brought the regulations and said we don't comply with the regulations, and I'm for 2 reasons. One being scale, and I'm saying the regulations don't say anything about scale.
No, the regulations do say something about manifestly unjust.
Correct.
If you don't have any beneficial use of the property.
Yeah.
And here you do have beneficial use of the property.
That's 100% correct. As have other projects. There's been manifestly unjust language in the Gloucester regulations since the 1980s. There have been other projects sponsored by me and other folks where this board has felt comfortable, even though people, as we both know, the courts have said you could put a park bench on a piece of property and that's considered acceptable use. That's so it's a very, I don't know what the standard is kind of a low bar, I guess. So yes, there's many times projects have been granted relief for new construction, or I should say several times, mine and other folks have presented, and this board has felt comfortable granting them.
Right, here you can have 23 bedrooms by right, with the existing system, and even more, under what was it, option 2 or something, and then you can do all of that by right. And now you're asking for a variance where, quite frankly, you don't need one, by doing the other options. So it's categorically different that way.
Yes, it's categorically different. I agree with you. When we look at the big picture, we're proposing a solution that will have less environmental harm than some of the other solutions, which involve either a significant amount of housing because they're going to be spending millions of dollars running the sewer line, or reusing an existing soil absorption system that's close to the water.
I don't disagree with you on environmental protection. Where I disagree with you is on manifestly unjust.
Mm-hmm.
So then you're looking for the tenor.
Yes.
not the end game.
Yeah, we're not looking for a vote.
So you're hearing the ten.
Thank you, yeah.
And just offer something as a complete layman, new to all of this. And I completely respect what you said about it's the process, not the product.
Yeah.
And I'm a person that was scholarship student at college, did all this, was a business person, and I went through business. So I am all about product in some ways.
Yeah.
And as one of the neighbors here, and again, I used to, when we owned our first house on Western Avenue, I would go run by this project and say, "Oh my God, no idea who lives there or what this is." But all I know is I'm never going to have anything to do with it. And the thing is that in having been a neighbor to this property, to have been able to wind up getting the opportunity to do the right thing by Gloucester and by the site, we're trying really hard to kind of maximize two variables: what's good for Gloucester and what's good for us as owners. And we're not doing this as a charitable endeavor, but we're certainly not profit maximizing.
Right.
And the thing is, and we're not, I don't believe that what we're talking about goes against what the spirit is. I mean, like, we've got lots of wonderful primary treatment processes, and that's good. And we'd like to build housing that uses that primary capacity. The issue is just sort of pesky regulation that says you have to have the secondary. And obviously you need to have the secondary. If you've got a quarter-acre lot and you've got a septic system there, you've got neighbors all around, it's a big issue. We have this 9-acre site, and we're really looking at, and it's a half-acre zoning, so 17 lots there, at least, if we don't, do some bigger conduit kind of thing. And I just want to emphasize that we're trying to do the right thing here. And the idea that our secondary, our backup capacity is sort of too close to some resource areas, yet still considerably farther than our current system that we could go ahead with. And everybody says we can go ahead with. I completely respect what you're saying, that the process matters in some ways more than the product. But I just want to emphasize, I think the product matters too. And what we're trying to do here is the right thing for the site. And that it's just kind of an emotional thing for us. And so I just ask your consideration of that.
We think that the process is the product, because the process is what creates good product, which is our little island here where we're all trying to live, and abide by the same set of rules. So it's not process for process's sake. It is process to, be sure that we are taking care of all that we live on right now.
But if you look at that from a micro perspective, Madam Chairman, I don't want to be argumentative.
I'm not a chairman, I'm just the director.
Yeah, well, you're the executive officer, yes, of the city. But if you look at this plot, if you look at these 8.7 acres, and you're saying, well, what is the right thing here, and what is okay and not okay here? I just really believe we're not. We always talk with Dan, and we say there's things that we can do absolutely by right, and that's white. And there's things that we shouldn't do, and by some nefarious way we try to get, and that's black. And then there's gray. And we're comfortable being gray. We don't want to be in the black, but we're just hoping to be able to make that happen. And I guess I disagree that if you look at this product and what would come out of our doing this, and then you generalize that to any other parcel in Gloucester, I think that would be okay. Because again, what we're doing is making the environmental impact better on the back end. I just really believe that.
What is the current status of the property? Is the 23-bedroom building occupied?
It was until about 6 or 7 months ago. They had to shut the water off, but they're in the process of fixing that. It's going to be occupied again, but not occupied by 23 bedrooms worth of people. I got it.
Okay. So the property had been owned by the Unification Church, which had used it as its place for having weekly services as well as a retreat home. And in the summers, they would have 70 or 80 people at the house at a time who would come and spend a week there. And so the people who lived there were called caretakers. It happened to be the minister for the whole Boston area and her husband who were living there.
Well, that means back memories.
So is it considered an unviable proposition, financially speaking, to limit the number of bedrooms, however distributed in buildings, to the existing number that could be dealt with in the upper two pink areas?
Yeah, I don't think that's
Whether it's 20, whatever it is, I don't know what the number would be, but
right. I don't think that's financially viable. I think they've looked at it and that's not gonna work.
I would remind the board that financial viability cannot be considered in manifestly adverse.
Yeah.
Yes, and that's why we didn't include that in our
Right.
we're not requesting. Yeah. Is there any other feedback that we have from any of the other board members? Again, as we've done in the past, it's prudent to have informal discussion before spending thousands of dollars on engineering something. So that's what we're
right. That's typically done with the staff. The board is much less knowledgeable than the staff about all of these issues.
Or in the SRSC forum, which is,
Sorry?
or within the SRSC forum, which is
Or
not
right,
necessarily forum
right,
of the board.
septic subcommittee, where we have our
which we
Which we have
basically have
the
here.
19th section,
Right.
yeah.
I can't remember.
I think what strikes me at this hearing about this more or less for the first time, what strikes me about the argument that it's going to be an improvement is that it's not an improvement from its current situation. The current situation is nothing happening, which is great. And so I think it's stretching things in my mind to say that this is necessarily an improvement over the current situation. I think things could be done to add value to the property without going above and beyond the capacity of the existing system and using any new system at a smaller capacity. I mean, that's my feedback to you now, without any stamp of approval or disapproval. That is just a sense I'm getting from the discussion we've had.
I mean, obviously, we're going to try to we'll have to try to maximize the utility of the existing structure for the benefit of whomever decides to buy. Because we're not in that business. That's not the niche boutique nursing home business. But that will be maximized. There's no question, and that will result in the maximum flow possible into that existing system. And so while today we're operating in a vacuum, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
But the status quo is not going to be the end game. And I think it's unfortunate that the process would abiding by and adhering to a process is more important than attaining a good result. It just makes no sense to me.
From a presentation standpoint, if you had layover sheets of Plan A, Plan B, Plan C, or Plan D, you have a much more language for the rest of the board to be able to explain what it is trying to do. There's no visual on this at all.
Right, thank you. We weren't sure how much to overwhelm or underwhelm, so we basically.
I'm totally underwhelmed.
Yeah, that's the balancing act, right? You don't want to present too much information, but you don't.
Just the idea, because you may then end up, but the contentious issue may not be aesthetically as attractive as the others, and therefore it's not an issue.
Mm.
You don't even have to go there.
Right. So, you're basically pushing this away from a cluster development into something more of a standard subdivision. That's what's going to end up likely happening here. So that's the direction we're getting, and I don't know what
Well,
else.
not necessarily.
Yeah,
I mean, but I think they're definitely pushing us to a scenario where we would subdivide off the existing house and the existing leach field, but we would still want to evaluate the potential of doing a cluster with the new capacity. And if we have, what do we have, 18, 19 bedrooms, we could do, 9 2-bedroom townhomes or however, we back it up.
And if you do a subdivision, you of course have to have a subdivision water quality assessment then as well, because you're on septic. So that's a whole other set of
we're aware of that.
regulations.
Yeah.
It's part of the process, right?
That's right.
You
That creates
gotta
a
have
great
that
problem.
process.
Yeah,
Forget about the product. It's all about process.
No, I don't think so.
that's government.
Well, that's why you have discretionary boards like you who can make sure that the right thing is being done by the city.
This isn't a discretionary board.
Oh, sure. It is.
No, it isn't.
Yes, it is.
It absolutely is.
It is. The staff implements codes, whether it's the housing code, the food code, the wastewater code. If somebody wants to do something different and ask for a waiver under those codes or a variance under this code, they come to the board. There's a board that can grant discretion and has granted discretion.
Those discretion in any board, it's limited. Last night, you and I, we were both at Conservation Commission, and I had to vote against things that I was really in favor of, because I'm limited by what the rules and regulations are. I may really like something, but if it doesn't allow me to do it, I can't vote for that. There can be things that I really don't like that I have to vote for too, and I've done that a number of times. None of your, submittals, by the way. But that's how it is. Your discretion is limited, very much so.
I'm sorry, I disagree. I'll tell you why. Because the Conservation Commission is actually implementing the wetlands protection. They're acting as the staff. It's kind of a crazy setup, but the commission implements the Wetlands Protection Act. As it relates to on-site wastewater, the staff implements the on-site wastewater regulations, and this board grants relief for local upgrade approvals or variances that are being sought. So you 100%, just like the Zoning Board of Appeals, are
Sorry to interrupt you. I just want to be clear. Like the board just went through an entire exercise to define the terms that they believed in to allow variances to be granted. And so I don't think it's appropriate that you're talking about what might have happened in the past. I think it's fair for you to bring up anything that's happened since these regulations have been written, but I don't think it's okay to say that because of some behavior at some point in time, we should be considering things differently than we are. The regulations are quite clear.
Yes, but somebody could request any variance to the regulations before this board. You don't have to grant it, but this is the board that would consider variances. Yeah. I'm not saying whether it's the old regulations or the new regulations.
I got it.
So you are a discretionary board.
Well, I disagree with you, and I remember when you had a different hat. It would disagree with you.
Yes.
So if you're not going to grant any variances, which it sounds like what I'm hearing from the health director, why do you even have a variance provision in there? You could just say, like sections of Title V that says no variances shall be granted. Why don't you just say that in your regulations?
In moments when things are manifestly unjust, as an example, which is the terms that the regulations say, that would be the case.
Yeah, and haven't those terms been in the regulations?
I can't speak to what any past behavior has happened. I'm just saying that since we've rewritten these regulations and the alignment of the board is that that's how we're.
I'm not asking about
how a prior board acted in the past. I can't.
Well, it becomes a precedent, it becomes a civil liberties issue.
No, we've already cleared that it's not civil liberties. What do you mean a civil liberties issue?
Well, if you can't, the city or the continuum can't treat people differently, it's just not right.
He's right then.
And I'm not gonna comment.
I appreciate what you guys are trying to do, and I think it's interesting. This is an area that I have a lot of knowledge, so to default to others with it and want to look through like what you provided and see more about it, because I understand the point that you're making, but I think it's just hard when we have specific regulations in place and what we need to follow. But very much appreciate what you presented, and I think it gives us things to further think about and review some of the materials that you gave for me for this.
Thank you. So if you have other thoughts, we'd be glad to come back at a future meeting. That would be prudent.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I would encourage you to continue to talk to Cody, for instance, and pass those new thoughts by him as opposed to coming directly to the board. I think that would be more prudent.
Well, any of the other paths we take, we don't believe we need any variances. So we don't believe we'll be for the board. And yes, we'd certainly work with the health department on that, and it'd be relatively smooth sailing.
I just want to say that you were very fortunate to find all the soils that you did. So you almost have this richness of options, because you did find those soils, and I'm surprised that you did. So congratulations on that.
The glaciers were kind in a few little spots.
Because many of your neighbors don't have that opportunity to have the soils there.
Correct. Okay, thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
And thank you for serving on the board.
Yeah.
It's not an easy thing to do. I've never done it, to my discredit.
Thank you, man.
Yep.
Let me see them.
Stay safe, Cody. Thanks for your time, everyone.
I'm gonna sign off, everyone. I've got a long drive home from Rhode Island. So,
Cody,
Cody.
demonstrating your new training in the room here today. It's great.
what's that?
Because you're
Demonstrating the training, you bet.
Nice.
I'm saving up as well.
Oh, I want a continuing care retirement community with cluster housing around it to feed that facility. That's what
Yeah, talk to them about it.
I can't. This is here and where my planning board had it around the building. That's exactly what we need.
Yeah.
With a feeder residential standing
Thank you.
into that unit, it would be glorious. And what a lovely view.
Yeah, exactly. What's this? I'm not familiar with this building. Is it in reasonable shape?
Yeah.
It's like a brick fortress
Yeah, it's a fortress.
or stone.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the big wall on the outside. I don't know if I've ever seen that.
Well,
I think you
they
can see
also,
it.
they were terrible neighbors.
We're a public.
Well, Sun Yun Moon is dead.
Yeah. Oh, is he Moonies?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I don't know.
Well, that's what I'll remember. Maybe you were a child. Oh, the city was turned on its head. It was terrifying. They had this presumption that every adult male knew how to fish. Because you were an adult male, you could fish, and so they bought out an entire year's worth of 24-foot fiberglass boats and dumped people from Omaha and sent them out to the ocean.
My dock master ran that fleet.
Pardon me?
Ray,
Huh?
Ray, my dock master,
Was in it?
he ran the fleet.
Oh,
He's like hilarious,
Spent-
wonderful person.
yeah, people,
So many backstory.
terrifying.
Yeah.
Is that location like where?
It's on the cliffs, right after
It's an easy walk up from State Fort Park.
the back of Stage 4.
Yeah.
Where the beach is, it's a.
Yeah.
What they
You
high.
can look over and see like one house that's like right beyond that house. There's a big red brick house, and then it's like the next.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
City sewer over there?
Hmm?
There's no city sewer over there? Where does it
He's
stop?
that was his first thing. He's like, we could connect the
Where does
sewer.
it stop though?
I don't know, but he said, like, his point was that it was cost money.
The
That's it,
sewer?
not a consideration.
Yeah, and the city council would be really loath to allow that. Because if you begin pushing one area, then pushing another. Now, they also have the Jordan Mansion in Boston is also owned by the church. Anyway,
What's next?
So, health director.
Director's update. Well, as the first part of my update, I'd like to just comment on the fact that that this was an example of an applicant bringing a precedent, right? And so what we have to do, I believe, is that as we face these situations, we take careful note of it, and we need to look at the regulations and believe in them. You know, what I didn't say to Dan is that we took out a lot, right? So the variance request number is going down because we took out a lot of things that were routinely granted because we knew that we always would grant them. And so this should just be such a finite document that has the truth in it that we all believe in. And if we vary from that, we should be really candid about it, you know, so that we can make that change. And I just think it's so interesting, the one case that varied, it's been brought to the precedent. And the less land we have, the more that's happened. So I really appreciated everybody's contribution today, and particularly Dave really holding strong to what those regulations were. So anyways, so what have you been up to? Or in general in the health department, all, you know, full court press on all of the inspection systems, and Chelsea will give an update on the prevention side of things as we go. What's particularly important for you all to understand is that the Public Health Excellence Grant has been accepted by City Council. So that's $300,000 annually that we'll have to help the health department do the work of health departments. So it's not a grant to, you know, necessarily do one thing. It's for all of the services that the state expects us to do in a more meaningful way. We're doing that in conjunction with Manchester by the Sea as a reminder. So we're adding 6,000 residents to the remit of these $300,000. So obviously we benefit pretty heavily. We are working right now to complete the intermunicipal agreements that our city is requiring and the state requires by end of the year. Joe, I think, was very helpful in sort of providing some counsel and edits to make sure that we were, you know, all being represented. And most important for this forum to know is that there'll be an advisory board that surrounds the work that we do. Obviously, I would always talk with you about anything that we have planned and get your opinions, and you would say, sounds like a great idea or not. Those great ideas would go forward to the advisory committee, which is composed of both towns. The advisory committee is proposed, and our administration is aligned to this now, be comprised of a member of the administration designated by the mayor, say a CAO or a treasurer or something, and then a health director, myself in this case, and Manchester by the Sea health director, and then the board picks a person, so it could be the chair or a member of the board would be there as well. So we have board representation, health department representation, and administration representation, which I think is terrific because that's what it takes to get things done, right? You can't do things in isolation. You have to do them through collaboration. And so that progress is being made. Primary areas that we want to focus on are digitization of data, or septic records as an example, so that that information could be moving around the hopper as it needs to into all of our systems, saving a whole lot of time and improving accuracy in what we're delivering. We're also adding an ad hoc inspector, we believe, to cover some of the seasonal stuff we have for, you know, restaurant inspections and things like that. Yep. And then we are going to be the third, you know, chunk of dollars will be spent, hypothesized to be spent on, you know, hiring a health services lead, consultant lead, to come in and look at all of the data that we've pulled together in these last few years, to give us a perspective on how, from an organizational dynamic, we might grow our ability to better provide health services oversight or support. Right now, Chelsea's team is small, heavily focused on youth. You know, Aaron knows, and you do as well, Fred, from your multiple roles, all of the things that are also needed in the city that we don't necessarily have a body on, right? And we all kind of chip in when we can, but it's not really a holistic approach. And so this third tier of work would be exploring what the organization might look like to be able to really be able to facilitate health services across the community rather than, you know, for youth or the time that we have. So that's it's taken a lot of work to get to this point, and it will be, I think very helpful for us going forward. I talked to the state yesterday because Essex wants to join us, and the state told me that they are looking for a city like Gloucester to step up as heir apparent to own a bigger region, and they would bring more dollars. So if Essex came, there could be more dollars potentially brought to the table with only 3,000, again, additional residents added into the mix. The state's really pushing for regional focus and regional thought on how services are provided. So the more that we can master how to operate, which I think we've already done a pretty good job on the inspectional services side right now, and sort of setting up those operations. If we add communities, we get a lot more dollars to be able to do more work for the residents of our city. So pretty exciting stuff. The downside is that it's going to take, can be a distraction as well. Adding all of that governance and meetings and alignment can take time away, but we'll have a full-time hire brought in as part of this grant too, that will be overseeing the program requirements and, kind of keeping all that on the straight and narrow. We also just presented at the statewide conference for the RISE Mosaic Grant, which is the opioid abatement. And we were, I think, the only municipality selected to speak. And the reason that we were selected to speak was because we're approaching this as building a framework of connectivity across community organizations. So, a dollar given to any organization benefits all. And so, an organization getting money from the grant will be providing services to all of the other organizations who are helping their clients. So no matter what door you come in, to steal an action comment, there's no wrong door, right? So we're setting it up so that any community organization can have access to the services, and one community organization is sort of stepping up and serving as that center of excellence. So they like that model. They like what we're doing to hopefully reduce duplication, have monies be more, meaningfully applied and everybody benefit. There's a lot of ground to get to have all of our community organizations buy in on that. But we think it's a great way to go. So sorry, I should even get rid of that one. And then in other news, we're continuing to work on all of the data that we've been pulling together and how we've been operating. I'd like to send Joe, if it's all right with you, I'd like to send that document that we created summarizing all of the operational work that we've done to date. That captures sort of how we've been collaborating across the city, helping other departments and health department work in collaboration to be have a better resident experience or to be more efficient or more effective.
That definitely you all should have a look at that, because I think it should be a sort of a blueprint for how all the departments in the city communicate what's going on and who they're talking to and what could be done better and what's needed. So yeah, by all means.
Can I have a copy of that, Chuck?
Yeah, no.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. So happy. That took, it's really just an amalgamation of all that we've been working on, but I think it paints a really good picture of our approach, which is to really lead through operational excellence, but then also be the compassionate department that we are, care deeply. Had a meeting with the mayor's office today with a few of our restaurateurs who were they came in upset, I guess, about the level of detail that we've been holding them to as it related to inspections, and explained to them the role of the health department in implementing state law, and the fact that, this current set of guidelines that restaurants are supposed to be adhering to was enacted by the state in 2019. So from 2019 to date, there's things that were a little loose. They're not anymore. We have a fantastic food inspector who's, been trained very well, using some state, back technology to be sure that we're thorough. And so with that knowledge, these restaurateurs were saying, okay, didn't know that, didn't understand. Now that they do, they suggested actually that we send an email to everybody, helping them understand our approach, which was to every inspection that we make, we spend a lot of time educating and helping whoever's in charge understand what their requirements are, so that when we move to risk-based inspections next year, which will be more efficient use of the inspector's time, they will benefit because they'll, pass their inspection and do well, and they won't get a second inspection and all that. So less the more compliant people are, the less inspections we'll be doing. The less compliant people are, the more inspections we'll be doing. And so we're spending a lot of time this year educating people and you know, helping them understand what's required. So that was news to these folks. So really great learning for us in terms of educating and communicating, making sure that everybody understands why we're being so exacting in these inspections. And that ended up very well. It's a good idea.
Was there a singular complainant that was rounding?
3 separate restaurants were in the room. All loved restaurants in the community. And we've spoken to other restaurateurs as well, you know, trying to figure out how to help bring the city into compliance because it was woefully not compliant 2 years ago. And we're making great progress in that. But how do we do that well and compassionately and not costing people a ton of money and knowing that they're small businesses? But the bottom line is the state doesn't really care about your financial plight. The state wants you to make sure that the food you serve is not going to make people sick.
Is there consistency in the deficiencies of their kitchens that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, there are. And Sophia's on the line, actually. So when she can talk to that a little bit really quickly. Sophia, you want to tell them about your hot buttons?
Hey, everyone. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. I was listening in, but tell me what kind of questions you have specifically that I can help us in the room understand exactly what's going on.
Multitasking and working. So we were catching up on the work that we're doing right now to you know, to kind of get everybody educated in our restaurants. And Fred had asked the question: are there common infractions that are coming up universally?
I would say that there's common infractions, but the overall theme that I walked into was what the state cares really the most about is the lack of active managerial control. And my explanation of that is there an understanding of the inherent risks present in your food service operations? And is the operator and staff well-versed in how to control for them? I grew up working in the restaurants. Things go wrong every single day, no matter how well and how perfectly you execute. It's just the nature of the game. So in those times where things go wrong, are you able to correct, or are you even aware that something potentially very serious has gone wrong in the first place? So that was the overall very common theme across the board that I found. And so all of this legwork the last year and a half has been to try and offer as much support and assistance to get everyone to understand what that means and what that looks like.
And can openers.
Yes, yeah. The board, if you saw my first edition of the newsletter, yes, can opener. My common violation of the month section did discuss can openers, but it's these really little things that people may not necessarily be thinking about, and just getting them to think about them more frequently every day. You know, that's their number one role in making sure everyone stays safe.
Thanks, Sophia. Does that answer your question?
To those that aren't aware, Sophia is highly regarded by many people in the restauranting business because she educates people.
Yes.
As opposed to just writing them up. And so that, you know, kudos to you, Sophia. That's a big plus. And serving the people of Gloucester in inspectional services, it often means keeping them safe.
Yeah.
It's not to raise an iron hammer against and show authoritative behavior against restaurateurs. It's simply to keep people safe. And by and large, if there's one person in every establishment that knows, one person on site that knows what's going to the right way to proceed, that's basically all it takes usually.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, you don't have to have a license to open a restaurant.
And it's getting more complicated now.
And it's getting more complicated. Yeah, exactly. So
wonderful.
Yeah, Sophia and Gabby have just been all over this. Gabby, obviously 20 years and with a big focus in food from the town of Concord, and trained up. Sophia's now got her tier 2, which is a pretty significant level of training at the state level. So she's really in command and control. But what's great for our, sort of focus is that it's leading through service. So she's educating, she's doing newsletters, she sends them hey, I'm coming on Tuesday and here's your cheat sheet of what I have to see. So any restaurant can, really quickly get up to speed, and many have. As did these restaurants, by the way, that were in the room today with the mayor. And by the way, the mayor was very supportive as well of the work that we're doing. But these restaurants in the room today all corrected, what she did. It's just so new to them. They're like, what is happening? And they almost felt like they were being picked on until we told them, like, no, we're picking on everybody here. We're trying to be sure that everybody's compliant.
Yes.
So that's it for me before I dive into the team stuff. But in our current tradition of letting Chelsea go first rather than last, she's going to give you an update on what her team's been up to. If that's okay with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, please.
Okay, so the work that the prevention team does, just as a reminder, it's very different than the regulatory side of the health department. So our team, which is myself and my colleagues, David Tucker and Lacey Natty, we are focused on mental health promotion and substance use prevention right now with a focus on youth and families. So our overall framework is really a positive youth development framework where we try to really increase and boost the protective factors that are in existence in our community that mitigate the risks that could lead to risk-taking behaviors such as substance use or development of a mental health disorder among youth. Some of those protective factors that we really focus on are ensuring safe environments for youth, both physical and emotionally safe environments, safe relationships among peers, and then also with trusted adults in the community, fostering civic and social engagement through youth leadership councils and coalitions, and social emotional learning and mental health skill building and support. So it's those are our 4 pillars of protective factors that can help keep youth healthy and safe. So under that framework, we have a variety of different strategies that we're working on right now. So I'm just going to highlight a few. We have our Gloucester Youth Leadership Council, again, which falls under that civic and social engagement pillar. We have a group for middle school students and one for high school students. We really let the youth decide on the issues that are important to them. Like, what do they want to work on? We look at data, we look at hard data, we talk about qualitative data from their own experiences, and what are you seeing in your community that you want to make positive change in. And interestingly, both groups have identified mental health, and then specifically at the middle school level, mental health and bullying, and the intersection of those 2 issues are really what our youth are saying they want to focus on. So they're working right now to develop some youth-led campaigns around the importance of seeking help. It's okay to not be okay, reducing the stigma, and also increasing awareness of the available resources. So like youth to youth messaging. We're also exploring the possibility of working with the high school mental health ambassadors group and doing some peer mentorship, like near peer mentorship to the middle school. So having like high school students work with middle school students around, again, mental health, access to resources, and reducing stigma. So that is our GYLC. That's David Tucker that oversees both of those groups. Lacey Natty, she does a split role between the RISE grant that Dominique already gave an overview of. She also is working on a prevention and early childhood grant, which focuses on like early intervention for 9 to 11-year-olds and families. So one strategy we're working on right now is increasing a sense of belonging for youth through art making. So we're piloting a program at Beeman Elementary and Plum Cove Elementary Schools, 6-week after-school program in conjunction with Art Haven, where students are able to have a safe place to be with trusted adults after school, where they're contributing to a larger collective artwork that will actually be displayed in their school. So each kid can contribute a piece of this larger piece of artwork where they can see themselves reflected, but then their peers as well can see. So the goal of that is to, again, increase a sense of community belonging and build self-esteem and self-efficacy. So that's really fun. It's cute. I went to one of them last week at Plum Cove and those kids have so much energy. It's like crazy. Let's see. We have a ton of recent events. You can see it on my overview. I'm not going to go into all of them. One event I want to make people aware of is Drug Take Back Day. That's happening on Saturday, October 25th from 10 to 1 at the Rose Baker Senior Center backlot. This is a biannual event that's a partnership with the police department, the health department, and the senior center. And it's really to ensure safe environments, one of our pillars, to decrease access to prescription medication that could be misused, either intentionally or unintentionally. So if you have any unused medications in your home, bring it to Drug Take Back Day, and it will be safely disposed of by the police department. And we always have resources available there as well. So the police take the medication, and we at the health department we always just have resources available to let people know what is an option for them if needed. Let's see, what else do we have? Okay, so in terms of increasing mental health literacy and awareness of resources, we are continuing our kind of years long now at this point strategy of infusing mental health first aid trainings in the community. So ensuring that adults who work with youth have the skills to recognize a kid who may be struggling and know what to do to get that kid connected to support. So I have the flyer here in the packet. We're hosting 5 trainings in the month of November and 4 November, 1 in December. It's an 8-hour training being offered at no cost, and it's for anyone who intersects with youth in any capacity. So any adult, so you're welcome to come, anybody here in the room. Or if you have anybody in your personal network that would like to join, we've gotten really great feedback.
Is that a regional thing or is that Gloucester?
It is. It's both. So thank you for saying that. I should have clarified. So our team works both in Gloucester and regionally with 6 other communities. So Rockport, Gloucester, Manchester, Essex, Ipswich, Beverly, and Danvers. So some of the initiatives that we're doing are really Gloucester specific. Our mental health first aid initiative is regional. So one of the trainings is taking place at Gloucester at the YMCA on December 3rd. We have a training in Beverly. We have one in Rockport, one in Danvers, one in Essex. Anyone can go to any training. We're just trying to make it as...
What's the time commitment?
It's an 8-hour training.
Okay.
So it's hefty. I think one of the trainings in Rockport is being offered in 2 4-hour days rather than 1 8. We're trying to offer as many options for people. Some are happening on the weekend. One's happening on Veterans Day, knowing that some people have that day off from work. So we're really trying to offer as many options as possible for people to attend. That being said, I feel emboldened to talk a lot now. Sorry, because I'm like, we talk about septic a lot, and now we're going to talk about prevention a lot. That being said, we acknowledge the limitations of an 8-hour training, that there are just some people who just are like, I would love, and we've gotten that feedback, like, I would love to attend that training. I don't have 8 hours in a day. I don't have. Yeah. And so that's a model that's proprietary. It's owned by the National Council for Mental Wellbeing. We cannot change that. But in order to try to address that need and that gap for folks who are like, I want to get some of this training, but I can't commit to 8 hours. We are hosting a series of what we're calling Trusted Adult North Shore, our Trusted Adult North Shore initiative. So we're hosting a series of 3 workshops that are 90 minutes. For adults, we're going to have kind of like 3 audiences, one for parents or caregivers, one for employers who either employ young people and or have a lot of young people like coming into their business. The castle in Beverly was one of the like examples that was given of like a lot of young people like hang out there, and like what is it about, how did the staff create an environment that feels safe for young people, and then also how do they address instances where maybe teenagers are acting up because that's what they do, and how do you have those conversations. And then the 3rd workshop is a more general, like any adult who doesn't fall into those other 2 categories, coaches, teachers, camp counselors, any of those. It's less of a training. We're calling it a workshop because it's very discussion based. We're going to have a panel of people at each of the workshops. So it's not like someone telling you how to be a parent. It's really like open discussion, both with panelists and then also like roundtable discussions with participants, to really just build community and share ideas and feel less isolated, because what we hear a lot from caregivers in particular is like, oh my God, I'm the only one who's experiencing this. Like, and when in fact that's not true. And we know that. And so to bring people together to share commonalities is really powerful. And we do hope people walk away with some tangible skills they can use with the youth in their lives. But it's trying to address that need for like a shorter, more accessible learning opportunity. I'm not calling it a trick because it's not a trick. So we're in the process of developing that, and we have dates. There's the first one's going to be November 20th. There's going to be, that's for parents. The general trusted adult workshop will be in December, and then the employer focus workshop will be in January. So I will share those flyers when they're available. But we really encouraging everyone to attend, and then also attend as an attendee, but also we're looking for supporters who can help us spread the word to their networks. And then Dominique spoke about the RISE grant. So
all I did is speak about talking about it.
Okay.
Really touch on
Do you want me to go in?
If you all are interested, she can tell you sort of what's live or what's not yet.
I'll just give a quick update. Dominique gave a nice overview of kind of our framework. I'll just give a status update. Is we actually are moving. It's been a long process. We're learning. It was discussed before. Process is important in government, and it's taken longer than we would have wanted to get things in place, but we're going about it the right way, and we're forming strong partnerships. So we're excited to report that 3 of the 5 services that are kind of like the pillars of this grant are rolling. So recovery programming through Core Peer Recovery, support for cost abatement support for recovery housing. So up to 3 months of stipends to support like sober housing for people who need that as a safe environment after exiting treatment or as part of their treatment plan. And then thanks to Action and thanks to Erin, we're very excited to be able to offer transportation to any treatment or recovery supports for any resident in Gloucester, Ipswich, and Rockport, which are the 3 communities in our collaborative. So that those we have MOUs in place, like those are moving. What we're working on still is the 2 original strategies as part of this approach, increasing access to recovery coaching, particularly to cover nights and weekends where there may be fewer recovery coaches on staff, I guess, like during working hours, or making it their working hours where people might really need supports on nights and weekends. So we're trying to meet that need, and we're working on that. And then pharmacy copay offset. That was originally one of our strategies. We may shift that just because we're hitting so many brick walls in that we're like, okay, but at least for now, we might divert those funds to support the other programs, transportation, and then revisit that conversation. Round 2 of funding is due next month, like the application is due next month.
November 2nd, I believe. Yeah.
So we will be applying for a second year of funding to continue the work that we've started. And Lacey Natty is working on, she's a program manager for that grant.
And there are other communities that might want to join at that point as well that are keeping with some of the same, like Beverly and Manchester by the Sea as well. So we would be able to, have more money from these communities, and then also be able to provide consistent services, for the people that are already accessing them through our community organizations.
Yeah, because a lot of our community, you're right, a lot of our community partners like Action, like Core, like the Open Door serve many more communities. And so the clients walking through their doors don't necessarily reside in the communities of Ipswich, Rockport, and Gloucester. So to be able to expand that would be great. Okay, I talked a lot. That's what I got. That's my update.
Thanks.
Thank you.
before I launch into each department, I wanted to just remind the board that our legal counsel, no longer Cheryl Associates, but now our city legal counsel are advising us as it relates to the Cumberland Road. 150 days from published dates coming close, and traffic study from the electric do. And so I'd asked them to come and give you all an update on progress, because they're obviously engaging with the applicant. Their opinion is that their word choice was hang and repose, like we're waiting until a date is missed or a document lands. And so they don't have any other update for us about that we are just waiting to see what happens. Of course, the biggest short-term deadline is that they hit condition, I was just trying to look it up, that they were able to hit condition 18, I believe, which has all of the requirements for the traffic study to be delivered within 150 days of the published date. So the published date was, I don't want to butcher it, June 18th-ish. And so, 150 days from them, it puts that as a delivery date. If that document's not delivered, you have the ability to come back and say, therefore not suitable, right? If the document is delivered, you have the opportunity to evaluate and, say it's acceptable or the same, as the terms are written. So that is coming, but there's no update beyond that. Okay. Heading into housing, happy to say that there's we're caught up on all of the rental registrations, which kind of all came in. And now Bree who's our housing inspector, is going to be sending out the next wave of campaigns to those that have responded from anybody who has a building, two-bedroom, two-resident building or more, reminding them that these rental regulations are in place, and we're also going to be doing a mailing to all of the people that had a former certificate of rental dwelling that have not yet registered. So the great news is we have a big chunk of new people that we never knew about. The challenging side of things is that we have to continuously reach out and reach out to get these people to register. End of November, as we decided in the last board meeting, we'll start to enforce, which means that as we discover people, we're going to be bringing a list, and we'll be looking for you to offer guidance and counsel to these individuals that we know should be registered but aren't. And it's really important to get everybody to comply to registration, because it's a view of their understanding of our laws, or the state's laws, as it relates to how you treat your tenants and your care for buildings. But it also has echo effect now also on short-term rental management, and many other aspects of the city that are pulling from this data now that we've collaborated into one pool of access.
So is there a graded level of escalation with regard to people that are known to be have rental properties but not complying?
I mean, I think first and foremost, if we have a complaint for somebody who hasn't registered, they would automatically be on the list for you, right? To say like this is a complaint and they're not, registered. How we go about pursuing, I leave it to you. We'll just, per our discussion, we'll be bringing the list to you, and you can give us guidance. So maybe we could start thinking about that now.
Yeah.
We've already sent letters. One, we're sending, to all the people that we know of, we're sending a second letter. And so hopefully that will get another wave of people compliant. So that'll be something fun to tackle. New in their packet is Bree giving details on housing complaints. What she's not telling you is what was the complaint. She's only telling you what the resolution is. So next time we'll add in what the complaint was, obviously respecting privacy, but giving you a sense of where things are going from a trend standpoint, from those volumetrics. Food, Sophia already spoke about what's going on. I told you about her Q2. Sophia, is there anything else that you'd want to bring up?
No, I think we've covered it all today, so we can skate on by.
In your packet is her new newsletter that goes out. She has 75% open rate, which for those of you who have ever been in communications, that is an enormous open rate, which is terrific. Her house file's opening at 75%, which we're pretty pleased with. And she's using it again to keep continuing the education and getting people engaged in our quest for excellence in our restaurant.
Did you add me to that list, please?
Sophia, that is Fred asking you to be put on the newsletter list.
Yeah, absolutely, Fred. I'll add you on there. I'll grab your email after this meeting.
Thank you.
Okay. So from a septic compliance standpoint, we are now really starting to call this out. After the election, we're going to really start to push on compliance across the communities. We didn't want to create any, sway one way or the other because we are absolutely going out in like pie shapes. So we didn't want to have our actions seem to be in any way, messing up with somebody's path. So now, once elections are through, we're going to start our outreach for any of those individuals that we know to be non-compliant in septic system maintenance for either INAs or traditional systems. And that is going to be our 3-tier letters. You might have seen on social media, we're pushing pretty hard on septic care. And then now this will be, all right, we know that you're not compliant because we have our records together now. And you need to act, and we'll have this steadfast process. So we'll be bringing people before the board who are in non-compliance. And again, there are fines and fees that are connected to that. Our goal is not to have people be fined for their actions. Our goal is to get people to inspect their systems and make sure that our groundwater is staying as clean as it can for our city. However, on the compliance note, Connor's on the line, and Connor had a great case I wanted to share with you as it relates to how the rental registry has revealed an interesting dynamic that we are happy to be able to have visibility into now. So Connor, can you tell that story?
I can. Hi, can everybody hear me?
Yep.
Hi, so my portion of the rental registry regarding septic involves checking the files in regard to what septic system they have, making sure that they have an active pump out report, or if they need an IA contract, they have one in place. And what I had found is, additionally, they need to provide a rental advertisement for what they are advertising the system for, so we can check compliance in regard to bedroom count. And a particular system had not provided an advertisement, so I started looking on Airbnb and VRBO and such, and the information that they had entered themselves into the rental registry claimed that they were a 3-bedroom septic system, and that is what they were advertising for. However, on VRBO and Airbnb, they were advertising for up to 15 people to stay there, and 5 and 6 bedrooms respectively at each rental. Additionally, putting like 4 bedrooms in one room, sleeping up to 15 people. So it will be active compliance that happens against them, but it just goes to show that it's really important how much the rental registry is kind of dredging up and the way that people are misrepresenting information in that way.
Connor, as far as you know, were most of these exaggerations done by individuals, or were any corporate entities involved?
The one that is in question, the most egregious one, it is a singular person, but I believe the house is under an LLC technically. So I don't know if that meets your definition of being a business. No, like large retail companies I have found have perpetrated this. It's mainly been, I think, a few individual lack of knowledge. But in this particular case, this one seems malicious.
Right.
And again, it's not, to the point of an earlier discussion, it's not all about the process, and we need to be hard for the process. In our ordinance, it was added that you can't have, anybody else can have 2 more people than the number of bedrooms. Unless you're on a septic system, then you can only have the number. And that's because that's design flow. And your septic system is designed for the design flow. And if you have more people using the house, you're going to fill up your septic system, and you're going to have overflow events and the like. And so it's important from a public health and safety standpoint to be sure that people are compliant to that, which is why it was written into the ordinance. And it's already in our regulations as well. So we just have to figure out how to get it resolved, as quickly as possible. So we've already talked about the majority of the work that we're going to be doing. Safety Day has already been, Safety Day really quickly. We were there at the health department at Safety Day a few weekends ago. We had 3 different tables. One table was for Connor, actually had a setup for the children that could, pour water into a different part of a city and see how the water made its way into the ocean. Yeah, and so the idea was to help people understand that what they toss is, they are creating the problem. So dog poop were coffee beans, and little jimmies were pieces of plastic, and they poured water filled with that stuff, and it made its way down to the fish, and the kids were like, the fish. And Connor's like, that's right, they eat it and they die. And the kids were like, Mom. And so then Connor was saying that the kid was like walking away, like picking up trash as he went. So we had at least one convert. But obviously the parents are there watching too, and sort of way of learning. We also had the prevention team there doing what they do, and helping the youth of the city understand how ways that they can get engaged. And then our public health nurse was there as well, doing all that she does, which is talk about disease prevention, ticks, and the things to watch out for, mosquitoes as well. Connor also had a toilet as part of his setup, and so the kids could throw things into the toilet. So you weren't allowed to throw in flushable wipes, but you were allowed to throw in, pee or poop or something. So they had fun with that one as well. So it's just a great example again of us trying to be educational, service-led, part of the community, not the big bad enforcement people. We also, as you know, created the kindness campaign for that you see the mayor now giving away the mugs. And so the mayor gets to have the fun, and Danielle, and actually I'm speaking for Danielle, who's on the line. I'd like to forget. Oh no, she's not. She had to go, I guess. I don't see her here anymore. So Danielle, who created the logo and everything else, we petitioned and asked people, and if you know anybody, please, we're sending an email out to all of our community organizations asking them to think about who in the community demonstrates kindness, and they, nominate, and then the winner gets a mug. And so we have a lot of mugs to give away. We hope we can give away a lot of them. It's not a tough competition to win. So really, if you know anybody that you're working with, or you want to say thank you to, it's a great way to do it. Danielle is also doing all of our website updates. This is our year of communication. And so we are implementing sort of a change in our layout so people have a more easy way rather than scrolling endlessly to get to what they need to look for. And it'll be very visual and help them, sort of jump into what they want quickly. We're doing this cost effectively because Artfluence, as our creative agency, they're designing the frameworks, and Danielle's doing all the implementation herself. She's also changed how we're taking in all nuisance requests now. So we have a way of tracking not only through See-Click-Fix that it came in, but now it's a case, and it sits on an inspector's desk, and the inspector has a lot of cases. How's that inspector being sure they're getting through it in a timely fashion? A lot of our response times are regulated. And so Danielle implemented a spreadsheet where the ticket, as we call it now, gets put in, and we can actually see things go red as it gets closer and closer to hitting a non-compliant timeframe for response. So that's great because it takes the burden off the inspector from having to remember how to do all this stuff, and we have a view into performance of the team. So we're pretty excited about that. She herself is now closing tickets. We've been focusing a lot on delegation. So an inspector only handles what their knowledge, that they need to handle, that they can uniquely handle because of their knowledge. And then we're sort of pushing down other things to other folks that can also handle those things. So we're kind of maximizing the time of the inspector so we can get through everything we have to get through. And so now Danielle's now closing tickets. So Phenom in our department, closing multiple social media things going out the door as well that she has set up on calendars and taking care of that. And last but not least, communicable disease reporting. I think it's interesting to note that in the government shutdowns and wastewater reporting is now stopping at the federal level. The good news is we have wastewater reporting, so we will not be cut off because we have BioBot doing it for us, which is terrific. Those numbers, by the way, are very low. We're not seeing really ticks in anything right now. Flu season's a coming. I was telling Joe in our staff meeting, I got to see Anthony Fauci speak this week at the Symphony Hall. It's pretty cool for the Boston Speaker Series, and he was hilarious, but also couldn't emphasize enough the need to get vaccinated. And he gave a great example of monkeypox coming back, and smallpox has been eradicated, so the smallpox vaccine went away, but the smallpox vaccine was also taking care of monkeypox. So it's not happening now. Monkeypox is cropping up again, and so having federal perspective on what's happening around the world is really important. He also talked about the fact that our withdrawal from the WHO and groups like that have two impacts. One, we don't get the surveillance. Two, we have the benefit of being, there's three actually, we have the benefit of being a very wealthy country and are making material differences in the lives of people around the world. As an example, Africa. And then the third point he raised is that there's soft influence in that. So if you go to Africa and you know, the United States interests are well represented because the people of Africa are so thankful to the United States for playing the role that they played in saving so many lives. And he countered that with like the view of the people of France who were like, we don't care about you. But he said that soft influence. Yeah, they don't care about anybody. He said that soft influence goes away, right? When you're not supporting. And so
USAID.
Yeah, exactly. Another example.
Where it said on every box from the American people.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So those are like, you know, these fairly obvious things to people in the field that are not necessarily so obvious to our current federal government. He got a great example of the importance of vaccination, talked about H5N1 as an example, and focus on research for the same. He brought up, he didn't use the word Spanish flu because it's really not, shouldn't be called the Spanish flu, but that flu killed many millions of people, like 18, I think it's even higher than that. I think it's like 30, it's a gigantic number. And that was only 1% of the global population at the time. H5N1, which, as you know, comes from birds, has made its way to cows, and it's also made its way to pigs, although they only have one case. And those mammals have in turn infected humans, but the humans haven't infected each other, right? So we're pretty close, though, for that passing the barrier. That has a 33% death rate. And so he brought that up in the context of it's not if a pandemic is going to happen, it's, of course, when and what will cause the pandemic to happen. And so it's important to stay really aware of fact during these times and listen to the local medical associations that are now stepping up and providing recommendations, and thankfully our own state's sort of holding strong as well. He directly called out how CDC changes are going to absolutely affect insurance decisions and absolutely will start getting people, you know, will fall off from compliance. So it was really sobering, but I was also really honored to be there.
Also must have been pretty impressive security.
Yeah. Yeah, there was two people that came out and kind of flanked him. And then I don't know if you've been to Symphony Hall, but the back panel where you would normally have the orchestra, there's like a set of panels that open up, and one of those panels was open, and you just knew what was behind there. Like, so yeah, it was heavily secure, but he was very candid in these conversations. It was wonderful to hear him speak. However, our numbers here in the city of Gloucester are terrific. Cindy continues to vaccinate people around the city, making home visits as well as having sessions across the city. So she has, just jump to these. I mean, you all can see the cases of what she's been tracking from a communicable disease standpoint and what our wastewater is showing. Big jump in fentanyl for a week, by the way. There's like a huge spike.
Yes.
And that's typical when there's a flush where somebody's coming into a home. They don't want you to know that they have something and it's a big bump.
Yep.
And this xylazine numbers are also still below state norms, but bumping around for us. But as it relates to vaccinations, she continues to hold these clinics. I believe we're at the Grace Center next week. Erin, did she come to you guys?
She's been to the shelter, yes.
Okay, great. She's doing anywhere that she can to be able to help folks, get access. She's doing all the municipal buildings and around town like that. She's got a lot of, she's now a lactation consultant in addition to all the work, her nursing skills. So she, in her new mother visits, can be even more supportive.
Is there a diaper drive?
Sorry?
Is there a diaper drive? Raising money for diapers?
Well, she always does one. I think they do it in the spring.
Okay.
Yep. Last year we gave a lot of diapers to Open Door. And again, that's all Cindy. She's a powerhouse, like all the team actually. And I guess the last thing I'll say is the whole team, Joe sat through some of it. We're starting to focus on how a high performing team operates. So using the 5 dysfunctions of a team, written by Patrick Lanciani, where you sort of address like the core tenets of what, typical teams have once they get through personal conflict. So yesterday we did the trust of how you have personal trust and express your vulnerabilities. And so we're trying to get it done in bite-sized pieces because we don't have a lot of free time. But I believe it to be pretty important for us all to be aligned on a common goal and then be able to, execute and not have to have a lot of hierarchical leadership because we're all going to be like-minded. So, I feel too like I've been doing a lot of talking. I'd love, as always, critique. Anything you guys want to see changed or improved.
I'm back now. Sorry, I was helping someone that came in. If you wanted me to share.
I already sang all your praises, so.
Oh, thank you. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Joe, it's a privilege for me to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Now, actually, if we turn to concerns of the board, I would lead off and say, I'm disturbed at this notion that we don't grant variances regardless. That I actually heard it from someone when we were standing outside, not able to get into the room. And then Dan said the same thing, that we've changed the rules so that there are no variances, which is nonsense.
There's fewer need.
And somehow we have to make that clear.
There's fewer need for variances. You removed everything that was ambiguous.
Right.
So Dan's experience is entirely drenched in ambiguity. That period. So your point of I'm not going to address things that have happened in the past is entirely correct.
Yeah, we can't. We can only speak to where we are today.
But that's where he's coming from.
Yeah.
He's had a lifetime of automatically expecting variances. And you corrected that.
What are your thoughts?
But I think that's where that comes from, Joe. Really?
Yeah, probably. And so I think perhaps we should just, probably silly to do that, but generate a list of variances that we've granted, or that subject subcommittee has said no variant, it doesn't need to come to the board. You're good.
Yes.
And again, the number of people that no longer have to come to the board because there's no need to ask because there's no variance needed, right?
Right.
Yeah, that changed dramatically with the changes in the
Right. So I think somehow, without spending a lot of time on it, making that clear at this meeting. We can spend 5 minutes talking about it.
We're still.
Well, we could do a summary in our volumetrics that say number of variances received. We could do year-over-year looks, right?
Yeah.
So we can just sort of show the decline in variance asked.
Without.
It is.
It's so different. It's part of.
It's
I would expect.
It's apples and oranges. Just the difference.
Well, what he did though in that case was he brought up an example that was the same request for the same reason, where we said yes. And that's why in the past, and we talk about this a lot, right? The emotional appeal, people would raise their voices and like yell at the board, and then the board would sort of like,
Well, there's nothing visual too.
Yeah.
That was a strategic error on that.
So it's designed to help us be more consistent, right?
Yeah.
And if we're not, then all the other people, like, you just are opening yourself up for lawsuit, basically, because you're saying yes to one and no to the other, when it is very similar. So education. Yeah.
Anything else, Erin, Marco?
No, I just wanted to thank Cindy for coming to the shelter a few weeks back to do the vaccine clinic in the morning for folks there. And also a huge thank you to Lacey for the RISE grant work that she's doing. She and I have had a few back and forth around stuff because of my own limited understanding of something and was able to come up with a solution. So I know it's a lot of work, but appreciate it because I think it's going to be really helpful for folks. So.
Yeah, thanks, Erin.
Yes, I can also thank Cindy for coming to the Biotech Academy. It must have been, in addition to the students, there were probably 10 or 12 adults, including myself, that got flu vaccine.
Cindy came and found me in my office and was like, "Do you need a flu vaccine?" I'm right down the hall. I'm like, "Sure, I got one yesterday." Yeah. Great. Actually, Bridget did it.
Yeah.
Cindy registered me and gave me sick.
No, I think we're blessed with terrific right now.
Yeah. Anything else? No? Motion to adjourn?
I will second that we adjourn.
All in favor?
Every year.
Oh, yes.
Yes, yes, yes. All right. Thank you all.